Dorian. It's got something to do with Carlos Santana. I need help.
Don't we all? But in simple terms, Dorian is the minor scale with a major sixth. Some terminology first. What is Dorian? And what is a vamp? Let's begin with the vamp. In music, a vamp is a repeating musical figure, section, or accompaniment. Vamps are usually harmonically sparse. A vamp may consist of a single chord or a sequence of chords played in a repeated rhythm. Vamps are generally symmetrical, self-contained, and open to variation. Many vamp-oriented songwriters begin the creative process by attempting to evoke a mood or feeling while riffing freely on an instrument or scat singing. So a vamp is just a chord loop. At least in this specific case, it's a way to set the mood or set a very specific mood. In this case, the mood of Dorian. And to achieve this, we only really need two chords. We need the minor tonic and the major four chord. That's all we need for our Dorian vamp, or our Dorian loop. But before we move on with the more complex stuff, and to give you some context for what I'm talking about, here's a simple example to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Here's an example of the Dorian vamp. A minor and D. What is it about those two chords that make it Dorian? To understand that, we need to first understand Dorian. So let's start there. First of all, Dorian is a mode of the major scale, meaning that for every Dorian scale there's also a relative major scale or corresponding minor scale, etc. So if we use D Dorian as our example, we will be working with the exact same notes as C major or A minor. The only difference is which chord is going to be our home base, our tonic. That's what modes are in a nutshell, because every mode is based on a different tonic chord. For C major or C Ionian, it's a C major chord. For D Dorian, it's a D minor chord. For E Phrygian, it's an E minor chord. For F Lydian, it's an F major chord. For G Mixolydian, it's a G major chord. For A Aeolian, it's an A minor chord. And for B Locrian, it's a B diminished chord, which complicates things a bit. Anyway, when I think about modes, I like to just forget all about what I just said and instead look at the scale shape or the formula. So let's do that. I think that will exemplify a bit better what I'm talking about and make it hopefully a little bit easier to understand. This is the natural D minor scale. D, E, F, G, A, B, flat, and C. Now let's compare that to our D Dorian scale. As we saw earlier, this is the D Dorian scale, or the D Dorian mode. Notice the difference? Of course you do. The sixth degree is different. In D minor, it's lowered, which gives us a B flat, but in Dorian it's not, so we have a B instead. And this is where the interesting stuff happens. In D minor, for example, the four chord is minor. It's a G minor chord. What are the notes of a G minor chord? They are G, D, and B flat. But in D Dorian, there is no B flat. We no longer have access to the G minor chord. Instead, we get a G major chord because the sixth degree of the scale is not lowered in Dorian as it is in D minor, which turns the third of the G chord into a major third rather than a minor third. This is what makes the Dorian vamp, or the Dorian change, sound so Dorian, because in regular minor we don't have access to that change. Next is an example I just made up of simple arpeggios, no leads or fancy melodies or anything, just to showcase this change and show you the particular mood we can create with just this simple Dorian vamp. And this time it's in F Dorian. It's funny. When I first started to really understand the sounds of minor, I discovered that the sounds I had been drawn to most of my life were Phrygian and Aeolian. It was something about that flat 6th degree that sounded so good, so melancholic, so dramatic, so perfect. For that reason, I was never interested in Dorian. Never cared. Why would I be interested in a minor mode without my favorite sound in it? Now that didn't make sense at all. It wasn't dark enough, it wasn't sad enough, it was just too bright. Just not my thing. But then something happened. Something that tends to happen in most areas where we dig a little deeper and we broaden our horizons and we begin to understand things at a much deeper level. I realized that I was wrong about Dorian. Turns out there is a place for Dorian in my compositions. Always writing in Phrygian or always writing in Aeolian can get a little bit tiring. I would almost go as far as saying writing in minor gets a little bit tiring, but who am I kidding with that one? That's just not true.
Previously.
I've tried to come up with a list of things to settle on, in terms of what the music should sound and feel like. And this is what I have so far. Dark mood, choirs, pagan, guitars but not technical, held chords, ambiance, piano with metal parts, strong minor Phrygian tonality with hooks in major.
Hooks and major. Hooks and major.
Yes. Okay, I'm trying to work on writing hooks in major for my upcoming release. This is true. But if you would have let me finish... Always writing in Phrygian or always writing in Aeolian can get a little bit tiring. I would almost go as far as saying writing in minor gets a little bit tiring, but who am I kidding with that one? That's just not true. Except for when you are trying to write an epic chorus in a composition otherwise heavily dominated by minor tonalities. See? In any case, Dorian is like my version of major, like a light version of minor, like a minor light. Not too heavy, not too dark, not too somber, just Dorian. Just perfect. As it is. I mean, check this out. Works well, don't you think? And this vamp was also in F Dorian, by the way. You can also make a little weird pop punk dance rock-ish kind of thing with it. It's funny being back. As much as I love it, it's also a bit impractical in ways. Because it's about 2, I think, maybe a little bit after 2, and this is the amount of light I have to work with. It's not that much. Now, what I'm sharing on this channel are just things that have been helpful for me and things I picked up along the way. I definitely don't have any formal training in music or anything like that. But if what I share is also helpful for you, great. You can thank me by sharing this video and spreading the word of my existence. with all of that said, thank you so much for watching as always, and I will leave you with one last example of the Dorian Vamp, even though this one veers slightly off course by adding another chord. But with this example, I hope to show you the cinematic quality of Dorian as well. And my light died, so that's my cue. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I never take it for granted. Please take care wherever you are, and thank you again, and bye-bye.